The budget of Rachel Reeves is already casting a long shadow over the UK's industries, over the UK's hospitality sector now, sparking fears of closures and significant job losses. Rachel Reeves' decision to increase national insurance contributions from employers from 13.8% to 15% and lower the threshold for employer liability from £9,100 to £5,000, as well as raising the minimum wage, has met with strong resistance. In a letter signed by over 200 leading figures, including the heads of JD Wetherspoon, the restaurant group, that's Wagamama, and Premier Inn's Whitbread, the sector laid out its grim prognosis. £3.4 billion in additional annual costs could push venues to shutter up and slash jobs. The hospitality venues are already struggling. The burden is pronounced because hospitality leans so heavily on part-time and low-earning employees who will now be drawn into national insurance brackets. And this regressive change, as Kate Nichols of UK Hospitality calls it, strikes hardest at flexible, lower-paid workers who often balance multiple roles or rely on variable hours. The letter that's been written illustrates how minimum wage earners could see their contributions jump by 75%, dwarfing the 13.6% increase for those on £100,000. The government, however, remains steadfast. Darren Jones, that fellow who excelled in excoriating Nigel Farage, the Secretary to the Treasury, contended that larger businesses should suck it up and bear the load for the sake of national recovery, notably to aid the NHS. But what about smaller businesses, those smaller family-owned restaurants and cafes? This stance overlooks the hospitality industry's razor-thin margins, already stretched by rising operational costs and the recent uplift in the minimum wage to £12.21 per hour. It's the combination of all these things together which is going to strangle any growth. The OBR's findings underline that 3/4 of the national insurance increase impact will inevitably fall on employees through stifled pay rises and hiring freezes. And this reality runs contrary to Reeves's assertion that the measures primarily affect employers. The sector, unable to shift costs to customers facing inflationary pressures, will throttle growth and force smaller players to the brink. That is the problem. The customers won't pay more. The letter appeals for reconsideration, proposing a reduced 5% national insurance contribution rate between £5,000 and £9,100, or an exemption for workers clocking fewer than 20 hours per week. Yet the government, balancing a precarious £22 billion fiscal hole, or so-called £22 billion fiscal hole, because it won't materialise until 2028, even if it does then. But we've heard so much about it, everybody concedes that it's there. But the evidence is not clear. What is clear is that the government's predecessors managed the economy poorly, and because the present government needs to balance its budgeting, it insists on tough choices to stabilise public finances and fuel growth through pension reforms and targeted investment incentives. The pensions reforms we're going to hear at the Mansion House speech shortly. But despite these assurances, the hospitality sector's warning is stark. Without immediate relief, closures and job cuts are not hypothetical, they're imminent. And these things together will threaten the vibrancy and the economic stability of communities across the UK. There is no question. This will destroy, this will strangle any growth.